Good evening, everyone. Great to be together in the virtual pruning space again. So I'm Rebecca from Organic Winegrowers New Zealand, and yeah, we're really pleased to have this follow-up Q&A session happening about François's guidance on pruning. So we have François Dal online with us from his morning time in the summer of France. And welcome, François. And we have Fabiano Frangi, who's here in Marlborough from our Organic Winegrowers team, who is going to be moderating and asking the questions. So we've received some questions already by email, so we'll be starting with some of those. And you're also welcome to post your questions in the question box on your screen, and then Fabiano will be choosing from those and reading them to François. And so in addition to this, I'm happy to say that we've got some practical vineyard sessions coming up to learn about this stuff as well. We just did the Marlborough session this week that Fabiano led, and we are planning sessions next week for, I think, Hawke's Bay and the Wairarapa, and after that, one in Central Otago, and we're just still confirming like the exact dates and times, but we will email everyone who's attended with that information. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, so thanks again to New Zealand Winegrowers and to Karen in the background with us for helping us with the technology, to our sponsors, Waikaitu, and to all of you for joining us. So I'm going to disappear now into the background and turn it over to Fabiano and François.
Yeah, François, good evening everybody here. François, as you might know, here in New Zealand is a common practice to cover the wounds with paste or to spray something anytime after pruning. What is your point of view on that?
Hello everybody. On that subject, we tried a lot of things. We have tried to spray a lot of products, pesticides, fungicides, different fungi to help to protect or to make competition to bad fungi. For me, all we tried had no result, no efficiency. Some people use pasta to protect big ones on trees, and their purpose is to provoke a big wall in the trunk for the bird to develop inside, for example, to have a lot of biodiversity. So we know that if we put a very hermetic pasta, it provokes a bigger wound inside the trunk. So for me, the best is to let the nature do its work. And the only interesting thing we could do is to help fungi to create the decomposition of the wood. So perhaps we can bring some other fungi, some products that will give some food to the good fungi to create an environmental place in favor of good fungi and not bad fungi. And for that, we tried different things to apply some biodynamic products, for example, things like you'll have to help me, Fabiano, in the translation, but la merde de vache, la bouse de vache.
Cow pet.
Yeah.
Cow poo.
Yeah, milk, different plants, things like that, that can perhaps help. On SK, on SK we have white rot, and on white rot we have a good solution. It's the opposite of putting some products. We use a small chainsaw and we open the trunk. And with opening the trunk, we create some conditions that are bad for the bad fungi, and we make the disease disappear. But we have to open and to leave the maximum of the white rot. So it's the opposite. So for me, putting a pasta, it costs a lot. You spend a lot of time, and the result often is bad. If you know a very efficient product, we are interested, but I don't know it.
Another question that came up quite often is how to retrunk. Can you develop bit more the retrunking, regenerate a new trunk?
Yeah. Often, if you have a very nice shoot at the base of the trunk, you can keep it, but you don't have to retrunk the first year, because this new shoot is too short and won't be able to suck all the sap. You have to wait it to be bigger. Often you need at least 2. The best for me is 3 years. You can wait 4, it's better, but 3 years is often okay. So the first year, often you just put a spur on this shoot at the base, and you go on pruning the rest of the vine with 2, 3, or 4 canes as you want. The next year, you can, with this spur, put only 1 branch to create the future trunk. And you keep on putting 2 or 3 or 4 canes upper, just not too much if the vine is weak, and to avoid to have too many clusters on the same vine that you do as you are used to do. And the third year, you can create a new trunk with the new wine. You can, if you want, put 2 canes on the new wine and 2 canes on the older one. It's possible. And the fourth year, you cut the old one and you put 4 canes on the new wine. If you are very progressive like that, when you cut the older one, it is big enough not to create the wall 4 we spoke last week. And the rule I gave you is that at the base, this new trunk must be at least the third of the diameter of the older trunk. So in 3 or 4 years, you have this diameter balance. When you decide to cut, you don't have to cut the older one too short. You have to leave a stock of wood at least a length equal to 2 help me, Fabiano, 2 times the diameter. That's it.
Twice the diameter, twice the length of the stub of wood needs to be twice the diameter of the wood of the cuts that you are making.
Yeah, you're speaking clearer for me than me.
François, it's fair to say that once you have once you preserve a bud from bud rubbing, basically, you treat it as a separate plant, then its origin, then the old vine and the new trunk, the shoot that you are preserving. Then you 2 bud the first year, and then you take a shoot the next year, and so on. Basically, to me, in my mind, the old trunk and the new one are 2 separate plants. But we just think about them when we talk about the charge, the amount of grape that we leave on them, or the amount of shoot that we let it produce.
Yeah, you have to have a reflection on the new trunk. separately, because you have to create it as if you created a new plant without the old one. So your reflection on the way of pruning must be unique on the new plant. But you have the same root system on the old and the new one, so you have to think about the charge, the repartition of the clusters with both of them.
Mm-hmm. Can trunk disease begin from grafting?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Can trunk disease start from the grafting, from the nursery? Can plant get?
Okay. That's a very, very interesting question. I have no affirmation on that, but I'm pretty sure that if your very young plant coming from the nursery is not in a very good health, it will be easier for it to become ill a few years later. So it's very important to start with very, very healthy young plants. And very healthy young plants it means a lot of things. It means that you have the contact between the clone and the root must be perfect. You have to taste it. You have with your thumb try, and you have to be sure that the contact is perfect on all around the wood. But it's not enough, and there are some things difficult for us to control, and you have to trust the nursery for a lot of things. For example, the quality of the wood. If they create a graft with wood coming from vines that are weak, that are very, very, very vigorous, but with no reserves, the quality of the wood is not so good, and the quality of the graft will not be so good. So there are a lot of things to observe. We made a big work on that in our region in France, and we are working with the nursery, and they create some grafts with our woods to be sure that the quality of the wood is perfect.
What do you think about the plant, the material that we found here in New Zealand?
Each time I came, I saw material only from one nursery. The quality seemed to me to be almost very good. But once we went together, Fabiano, seeing something that the quality was very bad. But you have to be very careful. I think everywhere is the same. Some people are working very well. Some other people don't want not to work well, but are not able to do the same quality. And you have to be very careful, because when you buy it, it costs a lot, and you have to be sure that the quality is perfect.
Okay. François, about the position of the spurs, I think this there was a question from that we received via email on slopes. So when in case of slopes and the rows being on the same size of the slope, in the same direction of the slope, and you want to prune with Guyot Poussat, would it matter which side the cane goes, if it goes uphill or if it goes downhill? And would you still follow the same principle, still alternating the side of the cane year after year?
Yeah, I think I understood your question. I tried to find a slide which can help to understand all that. Here. Sorry, I will show you some slide that I didn't prepare last week, and so there is no traduction. It's in French, but I think it's not a problem. Everyone can see my
yes.
My slide. Okay.
It says on top. It says buds badly positioned.
Yeah, you speak about that type of position. Yeah.
Not quite. No.
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 Because ideally we want that. When we have that on the spur, we can put a new spur here and a new cane here. That's the ideal condition. And if you have pruned correctly your spur, next year, the previous year, if you have pruned it correctly, you have this position. But sometimes you have this one. The previous year, if I cut shorter, if I cut here, I would normally have one here, and it would have been the good position. But it hasn't been done, so I have that. So what can I do with that? Is it your question?
Not quite, but keep following, because I always wonder about this one.
Okay, so when I have that, you have two solutions: spur and cane, or spur and cane. Often what we learn is to put the spur here. But if you put the spur here, you are not in the good flows up. You make an inversion and you go on the bad side. Instead of going on that side, you're going inside the vine. So it's not a real good solution. The other solution is to put the spur here. If you put the spur here, it is in the good flows up and it is going in the good way. So it seems to be better, but your vine will be higher and longer. And if you make that often, the base of your trunk will not be here in 20 years, but it will be somewhere like that, very, very far. It will be too long. So there is no good solution. Both have a big inconvenience. So it's you to decide what is the biggest inconvenience. If using this one is not a big problem because your vine is not too high, your arm is not too long, so you can keep your spur here. It's what I prefer to do. But if your arm is very long, if your arm is very high, so I prefer not to use it because it will be too long the next year, and I put it here, and I do not respect the flow. In this case, sometimes I put just a spur, no cane, and I expect new shoots somewhere like that to put a new spur here in the next years.
I think that François, that's perfect, this one, but the question was related more on if pruning on vines that on blocks that are on slopes, so depends. So you have the rows going along with the pen, on the same direction than the slope.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you still alternate the cane? Where the cane come from will still be right or left, or bas et haut de la pente, like lower and higher side of the slope, or would you keep the same and not prune on Guyot Poussard then?
Okay. Oh yes, you can prune on Guyot Poussard. The most important, it's the shame. The slide I have shown you last time. I will find it. This one. When you have that in your mind, you must always have that. These two green arrows, this one and this one, and you have to try to respect it, whatever the conditions. If you have a big slope, often it's easier to put, if the slope is on that side, for example, you often put the cane here because it's easier for a lot of things. But when you do that, and when you put the cane here, this shoot will be a lot bigger than this one. If you put the cane on the other side, so like that, you have a better regulation of the growth of all the shoots, because vine is a liana and it always wants to grow higher and higher. And if you put your cane like that, this one will be higher and will grow better. If you do the opposite, it's difficult for it to grow more. So all the shoots are almost with the same vigor. So for me, it's not a problem. You have to put your two spurs well positioned, and then you put your cane in the best way for your purpose. And if you have two canes, you have no question, one on each side. But you can, if you have your cane on this side and you want to put it on the higher position, you can take a cane here and put it like that. It's not a problem. The problem is that we will have a lot of clusters in that part of the vine, and you will have to leave perhaps one or two shoots at the base of the cane to avoid to have too much clusters here.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't prune with one cane very often, so yeah. I hope that is clear for the person that asked the question. In case of the spur not being at the same height than the cane, is there an issue with the apical dominance? So if the spur, I imagine that the person is asking if the spur is above the cane, is there an issue with apical dominance?
We often hear that. A lot of people say that. I have never observed it in the vine, in the vineyard. So for me, there is a disconnection between the growth of the spur and the cane. If the spur is upper or lower than the cane, it grows in the same with the same quality. So for me, there is no problem with that.
Okay. How do you tell if the trunk is too diseased? How do you tell if the trunk is too diseased to retrunk?
Often it's not the case. Let me find a slide.
So the person is asking, like, if the infection has gone into the graft, is it still a viable option if no buds or spur are visible under a compromised head? Could a slight wound into the bark in this region help to promote new buds growth in this area?
It can help. It can help because when you have created the trunk, there were different nodes on this trunk, and on each node you had a main bud, but you have almost 5, 6, or 7 buds around this main bud. And these buds stay dormant, they do not break, and they can break later. And depending the variety, they can break often in the 10 or 15 years later. And there are two things that avoid them to break. The bark, they have to receive some light, and the bark avoid it. So if you leave the bark, it's easier for this bud to grow. And the other point is that you have all the shoots and the cane that will break first. they will produce some hormones that will avoid the donor buds to break. If you cut the cane, if you have nothing upper, it's easier for this bud to break. But you can keep the cane and just realize a small cut just upper the new bud you want. And if there is a bud, it will be easier for it to break because you'll have more sap. If you make just a clean cut, not to provoke a big gel, but just to cut the vessels, they will reform very quick at the spring. But in the first moment, you'll have an accumulation of sap here, and the hormones can't go down, so it's easier for this bud to break and to create a new trunk at this place. So if I want a new trunk coming from this part, I will make a small cut just upper. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm trying to find something about retrunking. If I can find it. No, I haven't it. I haven't it here. But often I spoke about you. I can show you it here. When we have this type of vine with a lot of dead wood, with some disease, we open it with a chainsaw. We cut it like that in all the dead part here, and then it gives that. And we can see all the white rot here, and there is a lot everywhere. So we go on cutting, we go on opening like that, and when it's finished, it creates that. So there is a lot of disease inside the wood. We leave all that, and we go up to the graft point, but the vine is still alive, and the vine keeps on growing the next years, and the vigor is better and better each year because we have left all the white rot that create very bad conditions inside in the trunk. So don't be afraid, and if sometime we have a shoot here, we can create a new trunk here, and there is no problem. It will grow very, very healthy because we have lived everything inside. So sometime when you have try to think things like that, we open it, but a few years later we totally open it, and it can seem to be the opposite as what I said to you last week, because we make big gels doing that. But these vines were ill. We don't do that on sane plants. We only do that because the vine is very ill. The disease is inside. So when it's inside, we have to leave it. But if you have a new shoot here, you imagine that the trunk is complete. You have a new shoot, and when you cut to leave the older one, you see the disease, and you want to cut shorter and shorter. Instead of cutting shorter and shorter, you can leave the stock of old wood, the new one is here, and opening the opposite part and cleaning it if it's necessary.
So now a person which is Rob from Place of Changing Winds, which knows you.
Hi, Rob. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we find that the buds of many of our pruning spurs are left and right across the axis of the row. So are not one up, one down, are on the sides. At such time, do you use the basalt if it's very well positioned. If you take the true bud in this position, you will have a zigzagging structure, quite different to the image in the book. What is your guidance here?
If I correctly understood the question, when you have a shoot, when you have a spur, the buds can be on the upper donor and upper part, the opposite, but they can be on the not here on donor, but on the sur le côté.
Yeah, on the side.
On the side, yes. I like when they are on the side, because if they are down and up, it means that your two main flow up are high and up. If you are on the side, it means that your two main flows up, zapflow, are on the side. So if you have your main trunk here and the two buds on the sides, it means that each one can easily be alimentated by the zapflow. So you can keep one of the other one. Both are correctly alimentated. Both can be kept to be a spur. So you can choose the one that goes in the good direction.
Yeah, I got a similar question when we did the practical session here in Marlborough. For what happened when the spur starts to face down
Yeah.
toward the ground?
Yeah, it can be a problem.
I suggested the guy to work with the crown buds. I hope that it was right.
Yeah, and it's why I always come back to one slide with your two green arrows like that. And when you come in front of your vine, the first thing you have to find is your spurs, and your spurs must be like that. And if you have a shoot that is very well positioned, but like that, you can't keep it. You want it to be like that. So sometimes you can't respect exactly the rule. You can respect it, but your vine will finish to have your arms donor and going in the soil. So it's not possible. Sometimes you have not to respect the rule and to make an inversion to go on having arms in the good directions.
Awesome. Hi, François. Short pruning and cane pruning have been compared many times for yield, fruit quality, cost, etc. The debate is still raging. All other factors set aside, quality, cost, yield, etc. In your opinion, is short pruning superior to cane pruning? In terms pruning alone, vine health and longevity, resistance to trunk disease, coming from quality sap, flow, maximizing resources, storage, etc.
Yeah, when we read very old books in France, often you have some comparison between short pruning and cane pruning, and they often consider that short pruning create older vines. You can have older vines, and you have thinner vines with short pruning. The main reason is that when you cut a cane, you cut a wood of 2 years old. When you make short pruning, you only cut woods from 1 year old. So they are younger, and more they are old, more the cut can be dangerous. So with short pruning, it can be better. But often, what I observe is that there are the basis rules, what we saw last week, that are not respected. And if you do not respect all that, you can make all the type of pruning you want, you will have a lot of problems. and I often saw a lot of problems with short pruning too. So for me, it's not efficient to say what is better, short or long pruning. The first important thing to do is to respect all the rules we have spoken about. And when you have done that, perhaps you can have this reflection to decide between short and cane pruning. But you have to be careful to the variety, because with some varieties, you have very little quantities of clusters on the bases buds. The main fertility is on the 3, 4 to 8 bud on the cane. So if you have only spurs, you can't have a good harvest. So with some variety, you can't do short pruning.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe, in terms of short pruning or in terms of spurs, do you believe there is any difference in quality between a basal bud or a true bud for pruning, or is it just a question of verticality?
Often, I had this question only in one region in France. It's in Burgundy. A lot of people in Burgundy consider that the basal buds make bigger quality. What we know is that the basal buds often produce less clusters and thinner clusters. The real buds, the main buds, mostly the buds not at the base of the cane, but in over position, longer position, these buds can produce bigger clusters and more clusters for per shoot. So at the base clusters, if the clusters are shorter, you have more juice, more concentration. So sometimes it can be useful, but not always. It depends on the type of vine you want to do. If you want to have a very concentrated white vine, it can be interesting. If you want to make a white wine with with a lot of flavor, not too concentrated, it's not useful, for example.
We now can buy vines which are on a very tall rootstock before the graft union. Are rootstock susceptible to the scion wood, to trunk disease after wounding?
Are able to what?
Si les porte-greffes sont autant susceptibles à la maladie de bois.
No, rootstock are more resistant. But for me, it's not. We didn't have a better efficiency using a long rootstock because you concentrate the gel on the clone, on the variety part, and if it's shorter, you make all your cuts at the same place, and it's worse. So for me, it's better to have a shorter rootstock and a longer trunk for your variety, and trying to put the cuts not too short, the one from the others.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any benefit to arching canes?
To
des arcures.
For the wood disease, no, there is no efficiency. For the cluster repartition, it can be interesting. It depends. We are on interest of the pruning. Archer have a lot of interest if you want to have very long canes. If you want to have a better production in quantity, Archer can be something interesting. You are used to use 4 cane for most of you. With 4 canes in your system, it would be very, very difficult to put Archer. But if you want to have a lower yield, but not too low, perhaps it can be interesting to have 2 canes and put them in Archer. You should try. The result can be interesting.
You didn't notice any head going taller, growing like rising the head of the vine faster by using Archer?
No, because you put your spurs exactly. It's exactly the same as a guyot, a simple guyot or double guyot. The only difference is that your cane is longer and you put it in Archer. But the spurs, you have exactly the same reflection.
If you prune with if you would prune with 3 canes, would it matter which side? Would you still alternate the 3rd cane, the one on the top? It's generally left on the top, the 3rd cane. Would you alternate the side of that cane where you wrap that cane or where the cane come from?
If you can alternate, it's better. If you can't alternate each year, it's not very important, but you should alternate regularly, because if you do not do that, you'll have one side stronger than the other one, and the side where there is only one cane can become weaker and weaker. So if you alternate, it's easier to keep the same vigor on each side and to have a better balance in your vine.
What do you think when you short prune and leave 4 or 5 buds on each spur? For example, 5 spur on each arm going left and right.
I don't understand why we should do that. If you keep 4 or 5 spurs, you leave it a very long time, or it's just for 1 year?
I think it's just as a system of pruning, so like consistency every year.
Yeah, so you have like a gobelet in that case. It becomes a gobelet.
Yeah, but on 2 arms. C'est un cordon royal avec des spurs, with spurs of long spurs, 4 or 5 buds on each spur, and about 5 spurs per side of the plant.
Okay, I understand. Why not? It can be a good solution. Be very careful. If you let 4, 5, or 6 buds on each spur, you have to be sure that the basal buds are working correctly, even while your trunk will be higher and higher very quick. If you have enough vigor and the growth is okay, why not? There's a system used sometime in Italia, mostly in Chile. They make a cordon, and you have 2 arms. On each arm you have 4 or 5 spurs, and instead of putting 5 buds spur, each year on the previous spur they put 1 spur and 1 small cane. And on the other one spur and one small cane. And each year they cut the small cane, and on the spur they put a spur and a cane. So it's another way to do almost the same thing, and to be sure that the basal bud can work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we are going. To avoid. Oh, oops. Sorry, I'm running out of battery. Just give me a second.
In fact, with all the questions you asked me, you can consider that you can do whatever you want. You can have a lot of imagination. If you have in your mind the 4 or 3 main rules, and if you have in your mind that you have 2 more most zap flow, and you have to protect them, after that you can do whatever you want. You can have a very important imagination and invent another system of pruning that can be very efficient. And but it will be very efficient on 1 or 2 varieties, and it won't be efficient on another variety because the compartment is different. It depends on the quantity of yield you want. If you want 5 tons per hectare or 20 tons per hectare, you won't do the same thing. And this system, for example, with a cordon with 2 arms and very long spurs, can be efficient if you have a lot of vigor and if you want 20 tons per hectare. But if you want very high quality and only 5 tons per hectare, this system won't be efficient. So you can have all the imagination you want. At the moment you respect these main rules, all is okay for me.
Will the French rugby team ever be any good again?
You see, the way I'm done, rugby is not for me. I'm running, so no, I know that we can't fight against New Zealand on that point.
I have to filter, but there are so many of those questions that I have to put it one there because with a high vigor in Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, should we leave longer stamp to allow for the dieback? You said about twice leaving a stamp that is twice.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think twice is enough, even for you, even with your vigor.
When you before you talk about 4 to 5 years or 3 years before retrunking, but of your book, I always retain the 30%. Is which one we need to follow? Because us we will reach 30% probably faster than 4 years.
Yeah.
I then can cut if it's 2 years time, probably 2 years, maybe not. But as we generally, if I take a shoot now, if we preserve a shoot from bad rubbing, we can easily train it, and it will be of I don't know, the diameter of a good finger, you know.
Yeah.
A good diameter at pruning. So if I would be tempted to not too bad, to not cut it, not prune it too bad. Yeah. Because what I found in my experience is that when I cut with 2 buds, those 2 buds, they will be extremely vigorous next year, and the position, the internode of those 2 buds, or one shoot of those 2 buds, will be very, very long, the internode, and it's difficult to position the head of the plant where you most need it. So I found that having a lower vigor, so cutting, preserving the shoot straight away the first year, and then prune it, for example, at the height of the fruiting wire, help to with a number of things.
Yeah, of course. If you have enough vigor, and one other advantage to put to not to put it in a spur of two buds but higher is to protect it from the work of the soil. If you when you work the soil, you can break it. If you put it higher and you protect it, it's easier not to break it. It's another advantage.
No. I explain myself bad. Sorry. I mean by you even you keep it from the bud wrapping, the pump, close to the crafting point. No matter. But that shoot here with the high vigor that we experience here in especially in Marlborough, that shoot can easily grow very well during the year that we preserve it.
I perfectly understood.
Cool.
I perfectly understood. But if you had a very good growth the first year, you can create the trunk the first year. Is what you mean. If you instead of creating the trunk, you put a spur, you go back to very down position, and next year you still have a risk with working in the soil. It's what I mean. It's what I wanted to do. If you create the trunk, it's higher, it's protected, and you have less risk. Perhaps I didn't speak correctly, but I understood.
I got you now.
So you can not putting a spur the first year, but creating directly your trunk. If you do that, it will grow in diameter lower, not so quick. So you'll have to wait at least one year more to have the good diameter at the base. But it's not a problem. You can easily create the trunk the first year. The second year, you put 2 spurs and a cane, for example. So you keep 2 canes on the older one. And the third year, you put 2 spurs and 2 canes, and you can cut it. And if the vigor is not correct, if the diameter is not correct, you can put only 2 spurs and 2 or 3 canes on the new one, and keep on again 1 spur and 1 cane on the older one, for example, for 1 year to wait to have the good diameter. But you can imagine a lot of things like that.
If you have some dead wood on the trunk, is the only way to get good sap flow by using a new cane from below the dead wood, or is there any other way? For example, using cane from the other side of the head.
Often the other ways are bad, and often if you make a very simple experience, cut some vines. When you retrunk, you have a new one, and the older one, before leaving it, cut it along like I did, like things I shown you. I show you to be sure that you understand me. Do things like that. When it's still on the vine, you cut it, and you imagine that if you put something here, you say, "Oh, I have a big jail here, so instead of pruning here, I will prune here." If you do that, often you see that you have a lot of dead wood, and that part is bad alimentated. So it's often easier to find something here or here.
Yeah.
But cut some vines, and you'll see, and you'll learn a lot of things.
Yeah. If you have some dead wood on the trunk, you should removing ESCA with a chainsaw. If when I'm renewing trunks with a cut 20 centimeter above the graft, we find Utipa. Should we try and remove the Utipa with the chainsaw, or is too late?
No, and don't try because it's inefficient with Otipa. Often in France, I used to say that for me, Otipa is not a disease. SK is very complicated, it's very difficult. SK with white rot create a lot of problems. When you respect the way of pruning, Otipa disappears totally. For me, Otipa is really very, very easy to fight again. SK is a lot more difficult. So when you create a retrunking, don't matter about Otipa. Often your retrunking is very efficient, and you have no infection of your new one by Otipa. With white rot, with SK, if you don't clean it, the new shoot after maximum 4 or 5 years is ill too. So you have to clean it, but it's not the problem with Otipa.
When is the best time to remove dead wood of stump left from respected cut?
When it's dry, and when it's dry, you can do it whenever you want. In the very old
wood is dry, not the weather is dry.
When the wood is dry.
Yeah.
In there's a long time ago, in 100 years ago, in France, people used to go in the vineyard to cut the dead wood, and they started to prune very late. They didn't want to cut the alive wood before what we call Saint-Vincent. Saint-Vincent is the 22nd of January. And even it corresponds to the end of August for you, I think. Yes, that's it. The end of July for you.
The 22nd of July, yeah. In a week time from now.
Yeah. So half of the winter is gone at this moment. And they used to do that. Now we can't do that because we have too much work, and people often leave the dead wood during the pruning period. The small stub of dead wood can be cut with your tools, your pruning tools, and the big ones often I think it's easy just before the break of the buds. You go into a vineyard with a chainsaw and you cut them. It's almost quick to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wait. I think we're doing it very well, François. Somebody send me some question via on my phone.
So all what we do here is, for me, very interesting, and we have to understand all that. One thing that is very, very useful is to practice in the vineyard, and do not hesitate to go with Fabiano in the vineyard and to practice to prune with him, because we often think we have understood a lot of things, and when we are in front of a vine, it seems very, very difficult sometimes. So it's important to practice with someone who knows this type of pruning.
Yeah, a question that I had the other day was, so the arm of the vine are already going out, okay?
Yeah.
and you don't have a spur.
Yeah.
You don't have a spur to come back closer to the trunk of the head.
Yeah.
What do we do? Do we do that incision that you talked about before?
Yeah, you have different solutions. You can do it. And as I said, more you have buds, more you have shoots, less you have chance to have new shoots directly on the trunk. So you can accept to lose a part of your harvest and not to put a cane on this side, but putting only one spur. And one spur is not enough because you have vigor. You can easily have 6, 7, or 8 shoots, but you leave only 2. And often when you do that, there is a reaction of a vine creating new shoots on the trunk. It's a solution. So it's always a compromise because you can't, what I said just now, you can't do that on all the vines. You can do that, but you know that the harvest will be very, very short this year. So you can accept to lose your harvest 1 year to renew a vine. It's a possibility. You can make a compromise saying if it's only 1 or 2 vine per range, you can do that. If it's half of the vines of a range, you do it only on a part of them and you try to do it on the other ones next year. It's always a compromise and it depends on the competence of the people working with you. So you have to make adaptations of all of that with your way of working, with your purpose, your objectives of harvest, and with the quality of the people working with you.
François, an interesting one that came up the other day was how the people in France or in Europe go about so a block that is heavily affected or is becoming, let's say that is becoming very difficult to prune in a correct way. Do people in Europe decide to, for example, take 10 rows at a time and retrunk all of them, or else they go plant by plant?
There is not one solution. And when you say in Europe, even in France, there are a lot of different compartments. Some French regions earn a lot of money, some earn no money. We have different way of pruning. In some region, when a vine dies, we replace it the next year. In other regions, they never put new vines in an older one because it's too, it costs too much for them. So you have very, very different compartments, and you can't have a generalization. Often in Sancerre, in the region where I live, we earn money. The vine is we earn money, and often people try to avoid the mortality. Sauvignon is very, very sensitive, and a lot of people now make curettage with a chainsaw. And when curettage is not possible, there is another solution I didn't spoke about, is to make a regrafting. Often when the vine is dead, even if the vine has been dead for 3 or 5 years, you can see that the root stock is still alive and sane. So you can cut the vine under the graft and putting a new Sauvignon Blanc, for example, and create a new plant. And this, when it's well done, is very efficient, and some people do that. with a lot of success. So you have different comportment depending on the winemaker, on the wine grower. So it's difficult to have a generalization.
That one is really interesting, François. The crafting on existing vines. How important is shoot thinning or head thinning, and what is the best technique and timing?
For me, in time, shoot thinning is very interesting because it costs time at a moment where you have not much time because the vine grows very quick and you have a lot of work at this moment. But when you do not do that, you have to cut the shoots during pruning. You have a longer time, but it's longer to cut than to shoot thin. So shoot thinning is an investment, yes, that is for me very useful everywhere, even in very cheap vines, for very cheap vines. But be careful to shoot thin early enough, because if you shoot thin very growth shoots, it's as you make a flush cut, because the new shoot is breaking, and the trunk start to recover it, and the recover is doing at 90% between the break and the flowering. So if you shoot thin very late, the base of your shoot is recovered by the trunk, and when you leave it, you leave a part of the trunk too, and you create the same gel as if you had made a flush cut. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Do you feel in France cost of shooting growers? Do you have contractors in France, right, as well?
Yeah.
Do you find that the cost of shooting is discussed with the contractor? I mean, if a block is shooting during the season, does it cost less to be pruned in winter?
Yeah, of course. Often, when growers try to have, when they work with contractors, they try to have the same contractor for shoot thinning and pruning. And if they do not shoot thin, they want more money for the pruning, and they accept to ask less money to want less money for the pruning if they had made a good shoot thinning before. So both are very linked together.
What do you think about spur pruning? So short pruning on 3 or 4 canes.
For me, the most important is to shoot thin the head, the spurs. That is very important. And after, when you have 3 or 4 canes, the other purpose is to have a good gestion of the quantity of clusters and leaves. And you have different way for that. It can be shoot thinning on the canes, but it's a lot of work, I think. You can leave some leaves during the season. You can do a lot of things. So for me, it is the gestion of the wine grower, the way of working of the wine grower, who will take the best decision always with the quality of vine you want to do. I don't know if I am clear and if I answer correctly the question.
I think that the question was more about pruning. So on spur pruning, but having 4 canes, 3 or 4 canes instead of 2. Cordon royal avec 4 baguettes au départ.
Ah, short pruning with
yeah.
You mean short pruning with short pruning with 4 arms?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Why not? Why not? I don't see the. You have to understand why you do that and the reason why you do that, and is there another easier solution to do that? And I think that there are probably easier solution to do what these people want to do. I'm not sure that cordon with 4 arms is really interesting. I doubt about that, but it depends on the purpose. So we should speak with these people to know exactly why do they want to do that, what is their purpose, their main purpose. Have a smaller clusters or things like that. So why not? But spontaneously, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I guess that there might be many reasons that we don't foresee so far. Like, I don't have any more questions. When is your book? When is your book available? And what can we find in your book besides this presentation?
The book should have been available for 2 or 3 months. They had some little problems with the printer and with COVID. They think that it will be available in 4 or 5 weeks, I think, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I hope it will be as quicker as possible. In the book, you can find almost all the slides we have seen with the explanations, and you can see other things because it was short, this presentation. So I give more details on all what we saw on the theory part, and we describe different type of pruning like cordon, gobelet, and we speak about retrunking, regrafting, curettage, the quality of the graft, all that things. All the work we have done about wood disease is in this book. But I repeat, the practical part is very, very important.
Yeah. Wanted to ask you something.
If some people have other questions after the practical part, do not hesitate to write it to Rebecca or Fabiano, and we can go keep on being in contact, and I can try to answer to other questions later if you want.
Yeah, you were thinking about coming in January, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's still an option, or else it's to be flagged this coming January?
I don't know. I don't know because with this disease, all is difficult to. It's very difficult for everyone to know what will be the situation in few months. but if it's possible, I wish I can come.
But if it's not this year, would be the following one. So if it's not 2021, will be 22.
Yeah, I hope so.
Wait, there is one person that is we miss. Must have missed an answer. As we have a little time, can we please go back to one question that has already been answered? But short pruning and cane pruning have been compared many times for yields, fruit quality, cost, etc. The debate is still raging. All other factors set aside, quality, cost, yield, etc. In your opinion, is short pruning superior to cane pruning in terms of pruning alone? Vine health and longevity, resistance to wood disease coming from quality sap flow, maximizing resources storage, etc.
Do I think it's better?
Yeah, if you think that one is better than the other, basically, as per trunk disease.
Yeah, just about trunk disease. About trunk disease, if short pruning is really well done, I think it's little better than cane pruning. But if it's bad done, it can be worse. In terms of quality, on very structured wine, if you want structure, if you want to have wines that are not drunk during the year but can be conserved a long time, it can be interesting. If you want to make wines with a lot of fruit, fruity aromas, cane pruning is also very interesting. So for me, it can have an influence on the way of working, on the quantity of work at certain moments. There are a lot of other factors that have more impact on quality. So it can be something in your reflection, but before it, you have to have had a good reflection on a lot of other factors, like the repartition of the clusters, the vigor, the health of the soil, the grass you keep or not. There are a lot of things that will have a bigger impact than the type of pruning for the quality.
As the time allowed, I have a little question that came up to me today. You mentioned quickly last week about vine that are healthy are less receptive, are less likely to get affected by trunk disease.
Yeah.
How do you measure? How do you observe that? How have you measured that?
I didn't measure it with very scientific measures, but when I open, like on the photo, we can see when I open some trunk and I see the walls, sometimes I see that the walls are not efficient and the fungi can go through, and sometimes I see that it's okay, the walls are efficient. And on Sauvignon Blanc, that is very sensitive, there are some vines where I like the way they are conducted. They make very good wines. The vigor is perfect. The quantity of harvest is perfect. We see that the vine is sane and there is no problem. And in these vines, when I open a trunk, the walls are efficient. And when I have vines that make very, very big shoots that are very green, blue, when there are a lot of very big clusters, when the harvest often have what at the end of during the harvest there are disease on the clusters. All that vines, often when I open them, I see that the walls are inefficient. And I'm pretty sure that the reason is the quantity of reserves, of starch reserves of a plant. When it's well conducted with a good balance, the starch reserves are very good. Often I like to have vines that are very sane. We harvest them, and then the leaves are still green and functional during almost 40-50 days after harvest. Sometimes when the year is very late, the leaves start to be yellow or red at the moment of the harvest, and they fall very quick after the harvest. So they can't refill their starch reserve after harvest, and next year they are more weak, they are more fragile to root disease. So when you have a sane vine that are able to work a long time after harvest, often you don't have any disease, root disease.
Okay, that's interesting.
But often in France we have very vigorous vines that are still very green after harvest, and when the frost arrive, they are green, and the frost make them disappear in 2 or 3 days. That is bad too, because they go on growing after harvest, and they go on using their reserve to create new leaves, and that's not good. I want to have the total cycle of a plant. When we have harvest, the leaves stay sane and alive during 40-50 days, and then they take their autumn colors, yellow or red, and after they fall by themselves, not by the frost.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have this complete cycle, often the starch reserves are very good, and the vines are healthy. So we try to make a lot of things in the vineyard to have this balance by the fertilization, by the way of managing the grass. All that is done to have this entire cycle of a plant. And sometimes it's difficult because each year is different, of course.
Yeah. Very well, François, very well. I think as we can call the day. We answer all the questions that came during your speak, so, and all the questions that I had on me. So if you, Rebecca, maybe want to say goodbye. Yeah, Rebecca.
Hi. Oh, thank you guys so much. That was awesome. Yeah, thanks to Francois for sharing your knowledge and being so patient with all their questions. Thanks, Fabiano, you're a great facilitator and for keeping it going. And thanks everyone for engaging and for all the really great questions. And I hope that was helpful. It's fascinating. So just about what's next. So this session is being recorded. So if you missed some of it, it will be going up on a private YouTube link that all New Zealand Wine Growers members can access, and we'll send out an email when that's available. And we've had a few questions about making Francois's presentation available, and that's all. The whole presentation is in. If you want to flick through the other YouTube video that we've got online already of the original webinar. His whole presentation's in the video, and if you need the link, just shoot me an email. And so in terms of the in-person follow-up, so we've already done one in-person event in Marlborough with Fabiano, and Fabiano's going to be hitting the road to go to some of the other regions starting next week. So I think we have you in, is it Hawke's Bay on the morning of the 23rd?
Will be on the 23rd. Let me check.
And Martinborough on the 24th, yeah. I think. And Correct. We'll be sending out details of the exact time and venue, but we do have vineyards lined up for those, thanks to people who are offering. And we've also, I think you're going to Central Otago, is it on the 30th, I think?
Yeah, I don't remember. Yes, it's on the 30th, and will be, the presentation will be on the 30th. Still have to set the time, but most likely we will be also in North Canterbury, but I still have to ask my boss.
Yeah, thanks to Gieson for letting Fabiano hit the road for us. Much appreciated. He's very useful, and we're grateful that he's being shared around. So yeah, and North Canterbury will be confirmed if we can fit it in. So yeah, details of those will be coming out soon. So anything else, guys? I think that's it. Yeah, François, thank you so much. This has been amazing. And we look forward to welcoming you in New Zealand whenever we're allowed to have you. We plan on welcoming you. So please be in touch. And yeah, we look forward to helping you meet more of these wonderful people in person. And we know that day will come. So yeah, thanks everyone, and have an awesome evening and all the best with your pruning.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody.
Ciao, François.
Ciao.